In the future world, you can buy everything, even eternal youth. But what if you don't have enough money? Organs can always be purchased with a loan. But what happens if you don't pay the debt? How do you survive in a world where your life is collateral in a loan deal?
Watch fantastic recaps by fans of the movies.
In the future, medical science has made remarkable advances, allowing scientists to grow artificial organs to replace those that have become diseased. The Union Corporation offers the opportunity for anyone to purchase such organs. However, the companies are not interested in people paying for their purchases immediately. They offer organs on loan. If the customer fails to pay back the money, special collectors, called repo men, take the organ back. Each of these collectors has a special tattoo on their neck that distinguishes their professional title. The person deprived of the organ becomes the victim. Remy is considered one of the best repo men. While in the apartment of one of the debtors, he is waiting to resume his work. The landlord returns home in the company of his girlfriend, expecting a fun evening. However, the fun is interrupted by Remy, who comes forward with a stun gun in his hands. In an attempt to thwart the repo man, the woman attacks him with several blows with her bag, after which she herself is electrocuted with the same weapon, wearing a plastic protective suit to avoid blood staining his clothes. Remy turns on headphones with music and proceeds to extract another organ, which is then carefully packed into a special container. The next morning we see Remy at home, having breakfast with his wife Carol and his son Peter. The repo man accompanies his son to school and then returns to his normal routine of harvesting organs from clients who have not paid their debts. People are bleeding and dying. Remy heads to the union office, where he meets a promoter in a human lung suit and stops for a cup of coffee. He keeps an eye out for clients facing urgent health problems and having to turn to the corporation. The head of the department, Frank, helps the manager convince clients to sign papers for a loan. Remy enters the break room, where he meets another repo man, Ray. The latter complains about the low-paying job. Remy reminds him that Ray was suspended for his brutal actions. He removed organs from a woman right in the subway in front of the passengers. Frank returns and asks Remy not to appear in front of customers so as not to scare them. He takes the repo man to another room where the extracted organs are scanned with a special device. They are joined by Jake, a school friend of Remy's. He bullied him a lot as a kid, but they became friends when Remy fought back. Together they went through the war, and together they took jobs at the union to do things that brought pleasure and income. They were told they would protect the healthcare system, but the friends just did what brought them joy and money. At a meeting, Jake made a joke by using a stun gun on Remy and then offered to have a drink. The friend agreed, but offered to stop by his wife's work and give her a heads up. Carol wonders how Remy is doing at work and is disappointed to learn that he has not asked Frank to transfer him to the sales department as they had agreed. The friends head out to a bar, and Jake claims that Carol is just seeking to control her husband. Along the way, they amuse themselves by pranking one of the customers. The repo men have a special scanner that indicates the time for organ removal to the collectors. They scan one of the passers-by on the street and threaten him for fun. At a bar, the friends are having a beer and talking about whether any of them have had to remove organs from people they know. Remy starts listening to a song playing in the bar and notices the singer Beth on stage. At home, Man turns on music by his favorite artist T-Bone and tries to hug his wife, but Carol pulls away from him. Remy goes up to his son's room to talk to him about his day at school. A few days later, Remy hosts a barbecue for friends in the backyard of his house. Jake gets an urgent assignment to pick up an organ from a client who is being brought in by car. He asks Remy for permission to do it outside his house, but he is against it. Jake convinces his friend by promising to split the double fee with him. The operation is accidentally seen by Carol and Peter, and Remy's wife is angry at him for allowing such a thing to be done at home. She leaves, taking her son, and demands that her husband decide what is more important to him, family or work. In the evening, Jake and Remy go out on street patrol. During the trip, they discuss their company's novelty, the MIV neural network designed for people with brain damage. By simply plugging into the device, a person can continue their existence of consciousness and the realization of their dreams. Suddenly, the scanner discovers an entire nest of debtors. a hiding place for people who are defaulting on their payments and trying to avoid leaving the country. The friends infiltrate the facility and start using tasers on the debtors. People try to escape, but some put up resistance. Remy gets involved in a fight and has to use a knife to prevent his rival's aggression. He assists Jake in defeating a bigger opponent by hitting him with a pipe. What ensues is an argument between the friends about who deserves the client. They return to the office and present Frank with their catch, including 2 blocking devices that the debtors use to remain invisible. Their boss is very pleased and suggests that the friends create their own team to search for such nests. Remy refuses and wants to ask Frank to transfer him to the sales department, but Jake interrupts him and says that everything is fine with them. The friends ride in the car and Jake begins to convince Remy that their work is very important. He says that the whole world is based on rules, and they help enforce the agreements that people have signed themselves up to. Remy drops Jake off and goes on a mission, which will be his last before his transfer. The repo man must take the heart of a musician he's always admired, T-Bone. Remy finds his idol at the music desk. He is working on his latest track and using a drug in the form of red powder. Bone asks Remy to wait until he is done and even help him with the track. Remy agrees and promises to deliver the flash drive with the recording to the studio. When they are done, T-Bone lies on the floor and Remy is about to stop his heart with a defibrillator. But when he starts, the machine malfunctions and the repo man loses consciousness after a devastating electric shock. Remy regains consciousness in a hospital room where he sees Jake and Frank. They say that his wife also showed up, but had left before he woke up. Colleagues tell them that the accident was due to a faulty device. They also report that Remy has received a new artificial heart. The man becomes enraged that they want to shift debts onto him, disconnects the tubes of the artificial organ. As he walks out into the hallway, he collapses, covered in blood, realizing that he cannot survive without the artificial heart. When Remy is discharged from the hospital, he arrives home but cannot open the door with his key. Carol comes out to him, hands him a suitcase of belongings and tells him that she has changed the locks. According to her, when he continued working, he abandoned his family. Remy asks to spend the night at Jake's house. The friend agrees and suggests they throw a party with alcohol and girls. But Remy says that he is tired and goes to rest. When Remy returns to work, his co-workers cheerfully greet him and give him a stripper dance in a heart costume. The repo man gets down to his duties and heads to the house to see the next customer. Resisting, he wrestles with him, and defeated, realizes his considerable fatigue. After calming down, Remy tries to extract the organ, but his hands are shaking and unresponsive. He visits a bar where he and his fellow repo men colleagues discuss the previous day's work. Remy claims to have done the job as well as before. However, as he listens to Jake's story, he begins to realize that the client is also human and has a family. In order to see his son, Remy now has to wait outside the house when he returns from school with his mother. He tries to communicate with his wife, but she only hands him an envelope with a warning about an overdue payment for an artificial heart. Soon Jake learns the truth about Remy's failed work and begins to yell at him. He suggests that Repo Man take a break and resume work when he's ready. Remy tries to excel in the sales department, but his efforts fail. The opportunity to deceive customers about the consequences of delinquency is not to his liking, and his honesty repels potential customers. In his search for income, he takes up betting on horse races, but unfortunately fails there as well. The last notice of payment comes to Remy. Jake seeks to help his friend by taking him to a nest of debtors and fishing out a few people for him. However, Remy no longer has the moral strength to raise his hand against his fellow man, which infuriates Jake. He insists that Remy return home only after he has harvested enough organs to pay his debt and leaves him. At this time, a recovering customer attacks Remy and beats him. Later, the repo man regains consciousness after hearing the sounds of the same song from the bar. He follows the music and discovers Beth, who has had too many drugs. Remy takes her to a motel to recover. While she sleeps, he runs a scan on her body. It turns out that most of the girl's organs are artificial. Beth wakes up and starts beating Remy for helping her. The girl believes they have no way out, but the repo man doubts this. As an employee of the union, he enters the corporation's building in an attempt to destroy information about their debts. However, Remy does not have time to commit any of these actions. Jake bursts into the room. The friend doesn't give his coworker away when he sees that he is ready to hand over his stun gun. Remy sneaks into his son's room to say goodbye to him. At the motel, he tells Beth that they need to leave. On the outskirts of town, they set their car on fire and find shelter in one of the dilapidated houses. At the Union Corporation, Frank tries to turn Remy's case over to one of the repo men, but they refuse. Jake also refuses to take it. Beth and Remy gradually set up their new home using things found at the dump. The girl gives the repo man a typewriter she also found, and Remy begins to start a memoir. They grow closer to each other and one night make love. Next day, Beth, who has artificial ears, heard suspicious footsteps. Remy heard nothing, and then the girl connected his headphones to her head. It soon became clear that it was the repo man Ray who decided to take over Remy's case. The fugitives devise a plan to defeat the repo man. They move their belongings into another room, in the center of which is a huge hole in the floor. They cover the hole with a sheet. Beth hides behind the door, and Remy sits down at the desk and starts typing. Ray is even a little disappointed that Remy was easily caught. He pulls out a taser and heads towards his victim, but falls through the hole. Beth walks over to see what happened, but the old floor can't hold up and collapses beneath her. She falls toward Ray and injures her knee. The repo man pulls out a gun but doesn't have time to use it. Remy throws the typewriter on his head. The fugitives get into Ray's car and drive into town. Along the way, Beth tries to fix her injured artificial knee using the tools she took with her. They arrive at the corporation's parking lot, where the repo man sees a guy in a lung suit out for a break. Remy steals the suit from him and walks through the company hallways to Frank's office. He beats him up and demands that he erase his credit and Beth's debt data. Remy throws a piece of leather tattooed with Ray at him and promises to do the same to anyone who comes to him. But Frank explains that after Remy tried to erase everything last time, the system has changed, and now all organs are sent to a central office to be removed from the list. Frank tries to talk him into coming back by offering to renegotiate the payoff deal, but Remy shoots him with the stun gun he took from Ray. He returns to Beth's car and suggests she leave the country. Frank, in the meantime, gives Jake a mission to get his friend back. At the airport, Remy and Beth managed to pass the scanners as they used signal jammers taken from the Union office. However, one of the passengers noticed that the girl was bleeding from her leg and they were dispatched to the nurses' station. Remy disposes of the jammers. As Beth prepares to get bandaged, the repo men enter the office and re-scan the passengers. This time they detect illegal organs, but the couple manages to fight back. As they run away, they encounter Jake, who can do nothing. He is on the other side of the glass separating them. Remy takes Beth in his arms and carries her out of the building back to the car. They arrive back in the slums to a black market organ dealer named Asbury. He provides Beth with red powder and argues with Remy about whose work is more moral. Asbury obtains organs by extracting them from corpses, but even he can't do anything to help Beth. He has stopped working on the joints. So they turn to another doctor, Alva, but while Beth is being prepared for surgery, Remy learns that there are two Alvas N, a woman in charge of anesthesia and a girl performing the surgical procedures. The man worries whether the kid can handle the task, but the girl has a very precise hand, and she is good at it. Soon Remy and Beth return to Asbury but find him dead and with his organs removed. Jake walks in and tries to convince his friend to come back with him, but Remy refuses. During the conversation, Jake admits that he was the one who caused the accident and ruined Remy's defibrillator. He wanted his friend to get into debt so he wouldn't go into sales. The men begin to fight, and for a long time the winner remained undecided. Eventually, Jake throws Remy over the wall and he falls onto a metal ladder. He starts laughing, after which he pulls out a knife and wounds his opponent. In response, Jake grabs a concrete block and swings it at his opponent. But Beth shouts no and shoots him with a stun gun. Remy's mind flashes with images and memories from the past. He regains consciousness on a metal ladder with Beth standing over him. Jake's body is lying next to him. The girl says they need to run as a slum raid has begun. Many debtors are shot by the repo men, but the couple manages to hide in a maze of rooms. When they hit a dead end, they are rescued by a woman named Rhodesia. She runs an underground hideout where the debtors hide from the repo men. The woman notices the tattoo on Remy's neck and wants to kill him, but he excuses himself by showing his scar. The former repo man can't sleep well, so he goes outside where he sees the aftermath of the raid. On the ground lie the corpses of many people, including Alva. The next day, Remy and Beth are talking, and the man states that they have no way out and no place to run to. So he sees the only proper solution is to sneak into the corporation's headquarters and destroy the entire system from the inside. A short time later, they ride the subway and meet Carol and Peter. The wife yells at Remy for a long time before their son shoots the mother with a stun gun. The father hands him his manuscript and asks him to find him later in the town of Punta del Este. Remy and Beth spear Frank in his car and attack him with the stun gun. With his car, they reach the headquarters of the Union. They immobilize the two guards and, using Frank's body for retina identification, sneak inside. Remy and Beth glide through the building and enter a laboratory where numerous scientists are working. They are not noticed, but one scientist comes out. The man tries to talk to them, but hides behind a door. And then guards burst into the lab, starting a chaotic shooting spree and killing even the scientists. Remy and Beth follow the door where the scientist has gone. They end up in a hallway leading to a room with the corporation's database, but the space is heavily guarded. Remy and Beth make their way to the coveted door. He fires a pistol, she uses a fire axe. When they run out of ammunition, Remy tackles the guards with his bare hands, but they knock him down and begin beating him. He asks Beth to hand him a hacksaw, and she throws the tool. He uses it to eliminate the remaining opponents, and Beth puts her eye into the system to gain access to the database room. The fugitives lock themselves in it just before. Jake and Frank arrive on their trail. In the room, they find out that the system has no keyboard, and the only interface to the system is an organ scanner. In order to remove themselves from the system, they will have to cut themselves to do the scan from the inside. Remy and Beth take a red powder to dull the pain and begin the procedure. Remy's heart is the first to be removed from the system. At this time, Jake and Frank manage to open the door to the room with an organ scan of one of the dead guards. By this time, Remy finishes scanning the last of Beth's organs. Frank orders Jake to kill the intruders, but Remy says the girl is worth everything he's done in his entire life, and the friend decides to help him. Jake kills Frank with a knife and helps resuscitate Beth. When the system asks to put the scanned organs in the receiver, Jake puts 2 grenades in there and blows up the entire database. Now every customer of the Union is free. After a while, the plot shifts to the beach at Punta del Este, where Jake, Remy, and Beth are enjoying a vacation while listening to T-Bone's compositions. Remy has gotten rid of the tattoo on his neck, and his son has published his father's memoir titled The Repossession Mambo. Jake banters with Remy, but suddenly disappears. The sea and beach flicker, as if in interference on a television, but soon return to normal. Later, it is revealed that Remy is in a coma. He never regained consciousness after Jake hit him with a concrete block on a metal staircase at the Asbury house. Jake used the recovered organs from the raid to pay for an MA5 neurosystem for a friend and to pay for a heart. Beth is still alive and asks to be left to fend for herself. Jake finds Remy's manuscript and says goodbye to his friend, who will now be forever happy in his dream world.
Watch fantastic recaps by fans of the movies.
Any guesses as to when we'll start buying hearts on credit? Leave your comments below the video.